Hello, my name is Eduardo Saldana, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this Digital Age session on Introduction to Using Collaborative Tools for Online Teaching. This is a video of a session that took place in January 2021. In this case, in the video, there's no attendees. So first of all, I would like to before we start, tell you a bit about me. So I'm the e-learning lead tutor at Leicester Adult Skills and Learning Service, which is part of Leicester City Council. And I would like to share my email with you, which is eduardo.saldana-munoz@leicester.gov.uk, in case I mention something in this video and you would like to ask some questions or reach out. If that's the case, please feel free to send an email and with any questions that you have about things that I mentioned in this training. Just for a bit of context, Leicester, we didn't use any collaborative tools as heavily as we are using them at the moment, because Leicester has been under different types of restrictions and lockdown since March 2020. So our face-to-face teaching has been nearly non-existent for this term. Everything has moved for this year since 2020. Everything has moved online. So I'm going to talk to you also a bit about the Digital Age project, and this is a project that has been designed to support adult community education providers. That's what ACE stands for, on the next stage of the technological journey, and to help them develop the digital capability. So you help you all develop your digital capability, so that you can enhance your offer to your learners. That means that in this video, please do not expect to find the answers to all your questions. In this video, please just be aware that you will find some suggestions, but not all the answers. Okay, so the purpose of this session is to talk about advantages of using collaborative tools for online learning, to talk about the disadvantages of using collaborative tools, and I would like also to show you some tools that you can use to collaborate with learners and with staff as well. So we tend to forget that collaboration is not only with our learners, but also within our organizations. And there's some tools that are quite useful and a bit more visual than that you can use instead of just sharing files in a shared drive. Okay, so first of all, I would like to talk about advantages of using collaborative tools for online learning. And I would like to give you 30 seconds to think about some advantages of using these collaborative tools for online learning. You can start thinking about that now, or you can also pause the video and think about them, take some notes, and then play the video again. I'm going to now carry on showing you some of these advantages. And from my point of view, some of the advantages are to develop social key learning skills, teamwork, listening skills, and leadership skills that if you don't use collaborative tools in online learning, you miss that social interaction when we have had classes where it's more in the masterclass style. Someone is talking and the rest are listening and they cannot interact, okay? Some advantages are also the building of confidence, people being able to participate in groups, being listened to, and their opinions and ideas being given the right consideration. The use of pair group work in the online classroom, which is something that if you don't have collaborative tools, you miss that kind of taking the classroom environment into the online world. And this is something that can be done with tools such as breakout rooms, which most of the providers now offer. So Google Meet, if you use this with Enterprise for Education, Teams has breakout rooms since December 2020. The same with Zoom. Whereby also has it. So there's a lot of applications that allows us to use that. There's the participate and practice the language, ESOL and language courses especially. If you don't have collaborative tools, sometimes there's no way for your learners to participate. So for example, by collaborative tools in this case, I mean the chat built into some of these online and VLEs platforms where learners can then write in and participate, and also they can, for example, correct the spelling or just practice some of these more complicated words. You also can develop a group culture. It's not only about the teacher. The teacher becomes the facilitator of the session, but learners are collaborating, and the tutor is just allowing them to have that conversation and making sure that everything is going in the right direction. Is that guidance instead of just taking all the role, all the work on your shoulders. There's also, for collaborative tools, there's also the advantage of sharing good practice. Not only sharing good practice with your members of staff, if you can collaborate. So for example, you can share documents using Google Drive, using Office 365. You can also allow learners to share good practice among themselves. So if you are an art tutor and one of your learners have done a really good piece of work, then you can ask them to share it between themselves. For example, using a Padlet wall, and talk about, amongst themselves about how good the work is, so ways to improve as well. Then also you can give staff and learners social interaction outside of the expected classroom interaction, which means they can practice and they can talk to each other, not only during the lesson time, but also after lesson time with some collaborative tools like chat is included and embedded in Google, now in the Google environment, the same that you have with with Microsoft Teams. People can take part in a team of your classes team. They can communicate with each other, and they can have that social interaction outside of the classroom time. It's also quality assurance made easy. It's one of the main advantages as well, when you can share all of your documents that now are online with your line manager, and also if you are in charge of quality assurance, or you are serving a lesson, it's so much easier when you just can get all the documents compiled in a nice Google Drive if you want, or in OneCloud as well. All of those online sharing environments. Okay, or Moodle as well. And also one of the advantages, and this is one of the things that most of the attendees in the live session said, attendance has improved in many cases. Even when learners, when they were able to, could go on holiday somewhere, they could also remotely connect to Google Classroom, Google Meet, to Microsoft Teams, to Zoom from somewhere else and participate in the class while they were on holiday. Okay, that's commitment, but it happened, and attendance in our case has improved massively as well. Okay, now also, when there's a pro, there's a con. There's also some disadvantages. There are also some disadvantages of using collaborative tools in the online classroom. And during the online session, just to showcase one of these collaborative tools, I used a Padlet wall. And if you want, you can post a video and contribute to the wall, but I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm going to share with you Padlet. Okay, as you know, the password is online. So if you are accessing the Padlet, or any of the learners are accessing Padlet from their account, they can access it without a login. So they just need, if it's password protected, to write the password and submit. And they will then access the wall. And this Padlet wall is quite useful, as you can see, because people can interact on it. People can write their own messages about what they think is, in this case, a disadvantage of using collaborative tools for online learning, and they can also vote them. So for example, you can see some of the attendees talked about limited IT skills from the learners. Technology can limit what you can achieve. Some people include a picture as well, because Padlet allows you to include pictures. Needing equipment, internet access, you can have Wi-Fi issues as a learner, as a tutor. So this is a showcase of how to use some interactive tools in the online classroom for a debate, for example. And the positive thing about Padlet is every single thing that is added, you can see live. The negative thing is if your learners are using a tablet or a phone, they need to change screens, and that is making things quite difficult for some learners depending on their IT skills. From the perspective of someone using a computer, you need to again change screens, and you cannot see your call at the same time, which makes things complicated. This part, and it leads me towards the disadvantages of online tools. Some of the disadvantages are that introvert learners tend to hide in the group. If you have a lot of collaborative tools, the same as it happened in the classroom, someone would take the role of the lead, and the rest will just listen and hide in that group, because it's more comfortable that if you just listen to someone instead of actively having to work. But the good thing about this is you can always target your questioning to people that you see that are really quiet. Again, as I said before, some learners take cover, not allowing others to participate. So if you're using collaborative tools, you need to think that you may need to drop in and listen to those conversations to ensure that everyone is participating equally. Learners and or tutors might not have the technology or understand the required technology to use collaborative tools is one of the disadvantages. There's a lot of lovely tools out there, and every training you attend, someone will give you a lovely tool and another tool to add to your list. But the problem is, if you have a lot of tools, it will be very difficult to train everyone on how to use the tools. So it's better if you keep a limited amount of tools so that everyone can understand how it works and not get confused. If people don't know how the technology to do it, then to use it, then they will need to adapt the session to ensure that they're not counting on it. If the learners do not know how to use it, then it's better not to use those tools. Or train them as well. Part of the sessions now, every online session, the beginning of any course is an induction, which is taking longer than in the past, but at least learners will know how to use the tools that you're expecting them to use. Some tools may not be accessible for all learners. Some tools don't allow them to not have the screen reader compatibility that you need, or some tools like Google Classroom, for example, are not very dyslexia friendly, and that's the problem with this kind of tools. But for example, in the case of Google Classroom, that is not very dyslexia friendly. You have Wakelet, which is very similar, but it has the reading tools that help make reading easy for learners with dyslexia, or even members of staff as well. The obligation on the tutor and organization to monitor interaction and behavior in external collaborative tools is also one of the disadvantages. Who is monitoring it? And you need to make sure that someone is keeping track on it, and that all the safeguards are there to ensure that nothing is added in there that can be safeguarding it, or can be a GDPR breach, for example. So there needs to be a due care to those tools. So funding might not be sufficient to afford fancy tools. Some of these tools are not free, or if they're free, they're very limited. But there's a moment where we need to be aware that we might be spending a lot of our funding, a lot of our budget in tools that people are not going to use. They just want the account, but eventually they're not used. So spending needs to be clever in this aspect, and make sure that all the tools that are being used are used first of all, and then they're not only used, but they're also being productive. They're not being used just for the sake of being used, but they also are creating the engagement that you're looking and that you're expecting from there. The more tools that you use, the greater the training required. Kind of as I mentioned before, if you have a wide variety of tools, a massive range of them, who's going to have control of them, who's going to be training on them? And most of the times it's better if you just have a limited amount of tools and you have key members of staff that can model and even deliver CPD to show the rest, showcase to the rest how these tools work. Because we are providing a lot of tools, but are we providing the right support to staff and to everyone that we're expecting to use these tools? Are they being supported? Are they being shown how to use these tools? Next one is, who is managing the information lifecycle? Who is retiring and archiving the content? Because is everything just posted in there for years and end, or is there someone checking that all of this information disappears in the range of time? So every data that we have, for example, is deleted after 6 years or archived, because we cannot keep all of that data published for that long. Too many collaborative tools will be difficult to manage, as I said before, and everything needs to be under a reasonable list and under control. And then lack of support for tutors, kind of as I mentioned before, if you are giving tutors a lot of tools, but you're not telling them how to use them, but you're expecting them to use them as an expert, how is that going to happen? What training is being offered for them? Okay. Next is some tools that you can use to collaborate with learners and with staff. Okay, so I'm going to give you some tools that you can use. These are not apps, they're just some tools that you may have depending on the VLE that you're using. So for example, if you're using Google Classroom, you have Google Docs. The positive things about Google Docs is that even if your organization is not using Google Classroom as the VLE, Google Docs and G Suite for Education is free for education establishments, but you need an account and you need an admin as well. But the good thing about these is all learners will be able to use it for free, and it's something that they can use even after they leave your organization if they have a Google account. It's not the same as Outlook that requires a license. And you can interact live with learners in Google Docs. Google Docs are collaborative documents that learners can share, and they can work together in one document, kind of like in Office 365. Google Docs and Google Classroom as a VLE, Google Meet includes a Jamboard, which is a whiteboard. It's embedded in Google, very similar to Microsoft Whiteboard as well, or the whiteboard embedded in Zoom. Has Google Meet, Google Classroom, and Google Chat. Again, Google Chat, kind of very similar to Microsoft Teams, is it can be monitored for safeguarding because learners will be able to use it to communicate. Office 365, some functionalities are free. Now everything is paid for, but if your service uses Microsoft for Education, you can use Word, PowerPoint, Teams, Excel, Microsoft Whiteboard, and Flipgrid. Although Flipgrid can be used just with an account, is free. But all of those apps are available to you. Google Docs or Google Classroom as a VLE with Google Meet offers breakout room. If you have G Suite Enterprise for Education, that amounts to around £42 per member of staff per year. Office 365 offers free breakout rooms included in your Microsoft for Education. So all of them have collaborative tools. There's Canvas. If you use Canvas, Canvas is a Canvas collaboration where you have you can collaborate with documents saved in real time, very similar to what Google Docs and Office 365 does. There's Blackboard Collaborate as well with Chat, Whiteboard, and there's Zoom as well. If your organization use Zoom, there's Whiteboard, breakout rooms, and document interaction. Zoom allows you to annotate on screens live. You and your learners can collaborate in your own screen while presenting. Some tools that you can use to collaborate, I'm going to show you now. One of them is, as I mentioned before, Wakelet. And Wakelet is a very good tool. It's very similar to Google Classroom. Okay, so Wakelet allows you to have a repository of files. It's free to use as well. You can edit the collection, and you can see you can have a dark background, and it also has support, reading support, immersive service, but in this case, obviously when you're trying to showcase something, it doesn't work. But let me just go back. There you go. Okay, so you can see here, you can share different tools, the different links. You can share videos, so you will have access to this Padlet. Sorry, this Wakelet wall at the end of the session with the PowerPoint that will be circulated. It will be attached if you need to refer back to it. Okay, other apps that I can show you are Quizzes. Okay, Quizzes is a very good app. It's very similar to Kahoot, but the problem with Kahoot with online teaching is that you cannot, unfortunately, have your presentation and learners engaging with it on a phone, because they will need two screens at the same time, whereas Quizzes, everything happens on one screen. Quizzes is a very good replacement for that, and what Quizzes allows you is to take a quiz, okay, and it gives you two options. You can have a teacher-led quiz where you set the rhythm as you do with Kahoot, or you can set this quiz as homework. Okay, learners do not need an account; they can just access if you set it as a public. Pardon me. If you set it as a public quizzes, then they can access it without a login. Okay, this also embeds with Google Classroom. And if it's embedded with Google Classroom and you set an assignment, learners will need their login. They will need to use the Google Classroom login, whatever your domain is. But then once they finish, the grade will be updated and it will be shared in Google Classroom. So you will not need to find the grade in the system. It will be done for you. So this is an example of a game that I've very quickly programmed. It's very easy to use, and as you can see, you can have the question and answer very similar to Kahoot. What is the most effective way to collaborative online, using tools that can be used across platform, teaching in an empty room, or using tools that require licenses that your learners don't have. The answer, you can see, it gives you leaderboards. You don't need to have leaderboards, but again, it's quite easy to use. AC in digital, A stands for, if you were listening at the beginning, this is a test of your comprehension of AFL. You will know that is adult community education. Okay, and next, 2 square plus 2 square is 8. Okay, so you can even have maths included, which is something that is quite difficult. And again, if you want something like in here, fill in the gaps activity for ESOL, for languages, for English as well, if you are doing checking spelling of words, then you can just have these kind of tasks. The title of the session is Introducing into Using Collaborative Tools for Online Teaching. We submit, correct, and you can even set different answers with a capital C or a lowercase. As you can see, it's quite easy. It's quite fun. It has music as well. You can even have memes. You unlock different icons as well, so it can be quite engaging for some learners. Okay. And now let's go to the next tool. The next tool, also quite useful, I really like it, is Flipgrid. Okay, Flipgrid is a tool that works on video. Okay, so this the way this works is once you set up your own Flipgrid, you do need an account. As an educator, your learners don't need one. Okay, so once you set that, you can just create a prompt. Okay, so for example, in this case, the most useful tool for me is, and then you record yourself on video. The way this works is then learners can record a response. They just click on record a response, and then they can, they will need, in this case, a login, okay, to add the response, okay, but sorry, so I was saying, so once you set up your discussion, your learners will need a login. So either join with Google or with Microsoft. So if your learners are using, or your VLE is Google, is in Google Classroom, they can use their the login as a student login, and the same with Microsoft. And then they can join the conversation. The conversation, the videos can be up to 10 minutes long. And if the video is over 10 minutes long, then you won't be able to do it. But I think 10 minutes is quite a long one. And the way I've used it in the past is, for example, I have a prompt as a languages teacher. I'll just say something in Spanish, just talk about your last trip to Spain, and I asked them to do a presentation, and then these videos can be shared in the classroom as well, because learners can be able to see that. So you as a moderator have the right to first moderate the video, and if you are happy with it, then you can share it. Again, if your learners are not happy with it, they're not learners for you to share it, then you don't have to share it, and then you can just create it or make comments on it in the for your learner. But it sometimes is good, and for example, my learners do enjoy to just see others the presentation from others. The next tool I would like to talk about is, obviously we're talking about recording video. The next one I'm going to talk about is for those learners that really don't feel confident about recording video, or if you don't want them to have a login, like in Flipgrid, you don't want to just load them with more emails with the, links where they need logins. The other one is Vocaroo, and Vocaroo in this case is just an online recorder. So if you need your learners to record their voice and you don't want them to upload it from their phones, or just want to save all of that effort from them, you can just give them this link. They can record themselves talking. They need to obviously allow that, and once they've recorded themselves, they can save the file either to their device, or they can also share the link with you. Okay, they can even email it. So this makes their life so much easier than any other tool, where they just have to record themselves on the phone and then upload that, and some learners do not have all of that knowledge. And the last one, so first I would like to just repeat that Wakelet is free, Quizzes is free as well, it has free functionalities. There's also a paid for version. Flipgrid is free, Vocaroo is free, and the last one is Wordwolf. This one is not free, but I like to show you this tool because it's something that has been quite useful and successful in some of our subjects. Family learning, for example, have really enjoyed using it with their classes, their learners. There's some learners also for more visual subjects that have really enjoyed it. And this tool, Wordwolf, is allows you to very easily create games. So Wordwolf has a number of pro formats, or of already preset formats for things that you can use to create your different games if you want, or different collaborative activities. So for example, in this case, I've created a whack-a-mole activity, okay, and that is quite a thing that it's been quite successful for some, especially people that like competition in the background. This can be played, so you only need the login as an educator, as a tutor, but the learners, once you share the activity with them, they can access it without any login. As you saw in my example, they just have to enter their name so that you know who's done what, but then they just can go ahead and play. For example, hit the collaborative tool. So for example, you have Zoom, you have Google Meet. If you hit the wrong one, you have that. You have that little pause if you want, and you can just enjoy just that. And for example, as I said, family learning, learners really enjoy this kind of activity. You can do it in the classroom just to test them, and it's quite an interesting game to share with them. Okay, and now also wanted to mention that Wordwolf has the ability, if you want, to, once you create any of these games, so for example, in my case, I created that game as a whack-a-mole, you can then change it to any other of the formats that they have, and the platform will adapt it for you. If you want, then when you go back to face-to-face teaching, it allows you to print all of those files into just into PDFs, and then you can just have the game in the classroom. You can also have it on a whiteboard and smart board in a classroom. There's so many ways that you can adapt all of the activities that you design. The main thing about Wordwolf, again, is it's not free. It's over £1,000 for 40 licenses. So it's something that it needs to be used for the price that it costs. But as I said, some subject areas will really benefit from having something so collaborative. So as I said at the beginning, the purpose of this session was to talk about the advantages of using collaborative tools for online learning, the disadvantages of using collaborative tools for online learning, and to learn about tools that you can use to collaborate with learners and with staff. I hope I've been able to cover all of these objectives, and that you feel that this video has been useful for you. If, as I said, there's something that I may not have covered in enough detail, or you would like me to clarify, please do not hesitate to reach out. As I mentioned, my email is here, is eduardo.saldana-monos@leicester.gov.uk. So please do not hesitate to reach out. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Bye.